Exciting week coming up. I am releasing my very first book about training. More specifically, it's a training manual for the Highland Games. It's called HeavyLight, Periodized Throwing for the Highland Games. It's going to be released this Thursday on HVIII.com. Very proud to be bringing that to the table for HVIII Brand Goods. This is something Matt and I worked on. He kind of guided me along, worked me through the programming parts of it. I'm going to get into a little bit what it means. The whole picture of the book, why write a throwing manual, why write a manual for the Highland Games. We ran a training lab group for the past couple of years, and that was online programming for Highland Games athletes. We're drawing that to a close this year because we feel like the energy is better spent on writing programs like these and putting more universal resources out there. So this is kind of the start of that. And the HeavyLight philosophy came out of training those athletes for a couple of years and kind of seeing what worked and what didn't. Now, the number one thing that I guess I get asked about programming the Highland Games is, how often should I be throwing? And for the longest time, my answer was just, especially for newer people, just as much as you can. Do it as often as you possibly can. And that still kind of rings true. But as you develop into the sport, as you get the implements, you start to get experience, you start to build what looks like a season, you start having different needs in terms of how you need to program that season. So this book is an attempt to address that. And the way that we address it, the original genesis was to make it a companion piece to Training Lab and Strength Lab, which are block periodization schemes for the weight room. So the HeavyLight manual is built in a similar way. It's built along blocks. It's built along blocks that are actually identical to what you find in Training Lab. So you have off-season, where you're going to have volume. You have pre-season strength, pre-season speed and power. Then you have in-season strength, in-season speed and power, and then you can also have a peak season built into there. So this takes you through an entire calendar year, an entire season of throwing. Oftentimes, no matter where we are in the season, Highland Games athletes are kind of guilty of just going out and throwing. And that's constructive, like I said, to a certain point. But as you grow as an athlete and as you want to advance, your practices have to have purpose. And you have to be efficient with your practice time. We all don't have unlimited time to be out on the practice field. So the idea behind the manual is to give you the most bang for your buck out of your practice time, out of the minutes and the hours that you spend in practice. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first of all, we learn how to practice. We learn that we need to warm up, we need to move. That should be second nature to anybody that's active, that lifts, and especially that throws. But the next thing is you have to get comfortable with the idea of drills. Drilling is something that reinforces technique, works on the small things. Then you have to work on variations, which are things where you may be throwing an implement or partially throwing an implement or throwing in a different style or in a different delivery or pausing in certain places to where you're varying up your delivery for the throw so you can work on either position, you can work on tempo, or you can work on timing. Finally, you need to have disciplined full throwing. You need to know at what intensity you're throwing and how many throws you're planning to put in that day. So now moving out to the bigger picture, we have the periodization of your throwing. So in the off-season portion, in the off-season block, in the weight room, you're going to be doing a lot of high volume for moderate loads. So we don't want to couple that with a ton of high volume, full speed throws. Now, the final aspect of throws training that's addressed in the book is the use of overweight or underweight implements. Overweight implements generally are something to slow you down and make you hit positions. If you try to blow through a position with an overweight implement, it's going to make you pay and you're going to throw badly. And then light implements, lighter or underweight implements, are often used so you can develop speed. You can develop speed comfortably and get more reps at a higher intensity, higher speed without tearing yourself down and without getting worn out, without hitting bad positions. So you can actually work to building the competition speed even though the weight is lower. Something that I think is important to note is that this is not a throwing technique manual. I feel like there are a lot of fantastic resources by very, very smart people and talented throwers out there. The first being Matt's Throwing Lab, which I think is really what taught me the specifics, the ins and outs of the throws better than anything else. There's also Mike and Mindy Pekowski's Contrarian Method, which is also a fantastic resource, especially for newer throwers. So this is not a technique manual. This is more about how to program your throwing, just like you're programming your weight room across the season. So I have rambled enough. Thank you for watching this, and check out thehate.com on Thursday. The book will be released there. There's also a hard copy to follow. I'm going to do it in a 6x9, smaller, kind of like a paperback size, because I feel like this is going to be the kind of book you're going to want to take to the field with you. You're going to want to have this with you when you travel. You're going to want to have this so you have an idea what your plan is, where you're going to be training, so you can look back for things that you might want to be doing or things you may want to add or subtract from your training. So thanks again. I appreciate it in advance anybody that picks up the book, and if you have questions, don't be afraid to hit me up. I'm happy to answer.